Hi, and welcome to your Inside Power. My name is Patricia Stepler, and I am your show host for this segment. And today we're talking about your spiritual self part of you. And it is perfection. And it was perfection the moment you were born. But then it got all transformed and it got all mixed up. So that's what we're going to be spending some time with, how to bring that spiritual perfection back into your life and how you can utilize that and make a difference in who you are. So when we were born, we had this perfection, the spiritual perfection inside. We had no expectations. There were no expectations on us. And then there were, little by little. Those who loved you started to put expectations on you. As you got older, you started to have expectations put on you. And sometimes that perfect spiritual DNA got corrupted, just like a software program can become corrupted. Your spiritual DNA became corrupted. And you were molded and made into maybe who you really aren't. Maybe you had those expectations that you should be somebody that just didn't feel like you. How many times have we done things that we felt were expected of us, but maybe we didn't feel comfortable doing them? That's what I'm talking about. Those kind of expectations that just really aren't who we by nature are. Now, I want you to keep in mind, energy is every place. Everything is energy. There's energy going around you all the time. And that energy flows to and through you all the time. And you have to decide what part of that energy you're going to hold on to and what part of that energy you're going to release and what part of that energy you're going to use to improve or make you feel better or help you to reach your goals, and what part of that energy you're going to allow to bring you down. Because that's what happens all the time. You know, there was this in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about transmutation and this law of perpetual transmutation. And for the life of me, it took me a couple of years to really get a handle on what that even meant. What was this perpetual transmutation? But stay with me a minute, and maybe I can help you if you struggle with that too. But we have this energy, and energy's flowing all the time. And the same energy is flowing to other people, but not everybody does the same thing. Well, why is that? Well, because we utilize that energy differently. So if we look at the law of perpetual transmutation and we think of that with the energy, how it's going to transform that energy into different elements. So if you had water and you froze it, it becomes an ice cube, right? If you have water and you heat it, it becomes steam. That's easy to think of how that's transmuting. But you're doing that too. So you have this energy coming into you. And if you pick up on, let's say, the higher energy levels, then it's going to help you move to a higher vibration. If you pick up on the energy of positivity, it's going to help you to become more positive. If you pick up on that energy and it's negativity, then it's going to hold you back. Now, you see, I think if more people understood this, there'd be less people with problems like, dropping into depression, things like that, because they understand that they can just transmute that energy in a different way and it can transform their lives. Why don't people talk about this? Why isn't this part of the conversation when people are going through a difficult time? When people are happy and everything's going well, we rarely think about it. It's when things are not going well, and then we allow people maybe to drift into that spot where it doesn't feel good. But we don't tell them that all they have to do is to transform that energy. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, because if it was easy, it'd be something everybody do. It does take some work, but it's possible. So you don't have to stay in that low energy. Now, Here's my quote for today. Andrew Carnegie said, any idea that's held in the mind that's either feared or revered will begin to clothe itself in the most convenient form available. Any idea. So it can be something that you're afraid of. And if you think of that and you clothe that idea in that fear, guess what's going to happen? Nothing good. But if you take an idea and you clothe it with something that you want to have happen, something that's revered, something that's exactly where your goal is, then it's going to clothe itself that way. So this is why thinking and mindset is so vital, not to just reaching your goals, but just to everyday living. And so we have to constantly be on target with how are we projecting ourselves to the world. So when he says this, again, listen, any idea that's held in the mind that's either feared or revered will begin to clothe itself in the most convenient form available. That happens not by chance, but by law. That's the law or perpetual transmutation. So just like water can be transformed into ice or to steam, your ideas can be transformed into something very positive or something very negative. And it all starts with thought. Thoughts are things. It's just the first sentence in Think and Grow Rich. Thoughts are things. So you give any idea energy. So let's take this back. So you're having a very good day. You have a great idea. You have something you really want to go after. You give it energy and things start to happen. You start to attract to you exactly what you need. And that's how you're transforming that energy into something that you want. But let's take the opposite. You have something in your mind that you're afraid of. You're afraid something's going to go wrong. You're afraid this is going to happen. And you start giving energy to that. And that's what's going to happen. See, it all starts with your thoughts. It will clothe itself either way. So keep in mind that worrying is power and energy given to the fear of what you don't want. I remember when my daughter was in medical school, and sometimes you just don't know if you're getting through your kids, right? But she was in medical school. And if any of you are familiar with what happens in medical school, they have to take these different level tests. If they don't pass that test, they can pretty much figure that if they fail level 1, their odds of becoming a doctor go down drastically. Not impossible, but it's getting there. So anyhow, she was telling me one day that some of her classmates were talking about this level 1 test. And they were like, well, what's going to happen? What happens if we don't pass it? And they kept coming up with all these things that maybe would happen if they failed this test. And, what could go wrong and what they might have to change and their career going down the tubes, their idea of what they wanted. And she said to me, she said, Mom, I couldn't figure out why they were talking like that. Because what were they doing? They were attracting that to them. Now, I want you to think of this. And this is in another episode where I talk about the acorn. So an acorn is planted in the ground and it begins to attract to itself everything that it needs to grow into a mighty oak tree. It doesn't attract things it doesn't need. It only attracts what it does need. And that's what you need to do. It's not down there thinking, oh, well, what happens if I don't grow? Well, what happens if I attract the things that maybe a tomato plant needs instead of what I need? It's not worrying about it. It's only attracting, it's sending out energy. You put it in the ground and it's starting to vibrate because everything's vibrating. So this acorn starts to vibrate and starts to vibrate. And as it vibrates, it's starting to attract things to it that it needs because that's what we're doing. when we're on different levels, excuse me, we are attracting the things that we need. Everything's energy. Energy is moving, and those vibrations are at different levels. So that's what we need to do. So faith and fear, which are both invisible, faith and fear are both invisible, but they require us to believe in something. If we're afraid of something, we're still believing in that thing we're afraid of. If we have faith in something, we're believing in something. So faith and fear both require us to believe in something. Why believe in something we don't want? Flip it around. What's the exact opposite of it? So if you're really worrying about something, that's a good exercise to do. Write it down. Write down what it is that you feel, that fear, and then write the opposite of it. What it would look like if it was faith instead of fear. And then just rip up that one that's fear. Now, it's not going to get rid of it. We know that the mind's a little more powerful than that, but it's symbolic. But get rid of it, burn it, toss it, whatever. Get rid of it. And then anytime when your mind starts to drift towards the fear, because it will, ripping that up isn't going to change that. But when your mind starts to drift that way, think back to what you want. And eventually, what you want is going to become stronger and stronger, and that fear is going to fade away. You see, this doesn't happen overnight. This you can't learn overnight. Just like I said, that perpetual transmutation. While I understood the concept, I didn't understand, if you know what I mean, the deep meaning of it. I was like, oh yeah, energy can move. Yeah. Water to ice to steam. Yeah, I get it. But I didn't understand the full value of it when it comes to relating to our lives. So faith and fear require you to believe in something. It's your habitual thought process, or our paradigms, as we call them, the habitual thought process that pulls out that fear or faith. And so that's what we ultimately have to change, is our thought process, our paradigms. And those habits can be there from generations before us. We don't always bring those habits. We're not always the ones that cause them. They come from generational learning, oftentimes. And, why do we do the things we do? Well, it's the way my mom did it. It's the way my grandma did it. Why is that? We just have to look at that. And when we see things in our kids, when your kids are teenagers, they don't want to be anything like you, right? And then as they get older, sometimes they'll say, and then I realized I did the same thing mom does, So we have those generational habit patterns that have been instilled in us. Sometimes it's genetically, sometimes it's just by practice, but they've been instilled in us. So underneath all that programming we have is where the perfection is. And you have to get through all the programming to find your perfection. But I want you to realize that we live simultaneously on 3 different planes. We have a physical body. And it's simply that, a physical body. We have a brain, an intellect. And everybody's been gifted with some sort. Yes, some people are smarter than others. Some people have more, intellectual gifts than others. That's fine. Some people have more physical beauty than others. That's just the way we're made. But we have a 3rd plane, and that's our spirit, which is who we really are. That's who we really are. And that's the piece that's perfect. The spiritual part of us is perfect. But we live on this. Now, the physical plane is the lowest. It's the lowest level. And the middle level is that intellect, and the spiritual level is the highest level we have. And all the knowledge there's ever been is 100% present in all places at all times. And you can tap into it. With your spiritual level, you can tap into all the knowledge that's come before you, all the knowledge in the world. Now, some of it you may not be interested in. There are certain things I'm just not that interested in. And then there are other things that I want to learn, and I can tap into knowledge in the spiritual realm. So how do we do this? Well, we connect with the world through our senses. And we've talked about that before. That's how we relate to the world, by what we hear, by what we see, by what we touch, by what we taste. That's how we communicate with the world. But then we also have the intellectual faculties, which I touched on last week, I believe it was, where we have your intuition, your imagination, your memory, reason, perception, and will. And so we tap into those on that spiritual plane. Okay. So we picture in our mind what it is that we want. And you know what you picture in your mind is really what you want to do. If you've ever been asked, what would your life look like if it was perfect? We go to our imagination. And maybe we'll be honest and say what it would really look like if it was perfect. And other times we'll look at that picture and say, yeah, it's not possible. And then you say something else. Or you cut it down. You half it. But we really don't need to do that. What it is in our imagination is what we really want. It's what we want to have. And so what we need to do, instead of dismissing it, is to see ourselves doing it. Spend time in that imagination every day. See yourself with living the lifestyle that you really want. Now, maybe you're one of those very fortunate, 5% of the population that maybe really does live the lifestyle that they really want. Most people settle. They settle for what they think they can have instead of going after what they want. So anyway, see yourself doing it. And then that's when you use the will to hold that picture and focus on it. Because what did Napoleon Hill or Andrew Carnegie say? He said, any idea that's held in the mind that's either feared or revered will begin to clothe itself in the most convenient form available. You just have to hold that picture in your mind. And then it will clothe itself. Now, here's what happens. People change their mind. They build a picture one day, and the next day they say it's not possible. So they build a different picture. And then the next day they say, no, I don't think so. And they build another picture, and they confuse it. Hold the picture of what you really want. Don't dismiss the fact that you don't think you can get it. You don't know that. So hold the picture of what you want. Hold on to that goal. And when you do that, it has to happen. Why? Because that's the law. That's the law. Your body is an instrument of the mind. The body will go into the actions needed in order to accomplish that goal. And you use those higher faculties, the imagination and the will in particular. It's not that you don't use the other ones, you use them too, but those are the ones that you use in particular to accomplish what it is that you really want. And then what happens is the spirit starts to flow through the body. And it is the intellect that determines that flow. See, the spirit flows through the body, the intellect, the attitude that's in the intellect determine the flow. Is it going to flow slowly or is it going to flow quickly? The higher faculties dictate your emotional state, that vibrational level. The higher faculties, the imagination. You see, when you start to use your imagination and you start to build a goal of what you really want, you can't help but move higher in the levels. as your goal might be up here and you're down here, but when you start building it in imagination, you start to feel your shift. You feel it. If you are in tune with your body, the physical part of you, you start to physically feel that shift in you as you start to imagine what life is going to be like, the one you really want. So we start to shift through us, and that vibration dictates what you attract, just like that acorn attracts what it needs to become a mighty oak. You start to attract what you need to develop into the person you need to be in order to accomplish a goal. Did you hear that? The person you need to be. See, the person you are today is not the person you need to be to accomplish that goal. I was looking at some information yesterday and was looking at some things that I had done a few months ago. And I thought I didn't get the results that I wanted. And I realized I wasn't the right person. I was not there yet. And now I've become a different person. So my results are going to be different going forward. And that's just super exciting because that shows growth. And see, that's what a goal is all about, is the growth that you have within you. And that growth helps propel you towards that goal. But see, you have to be willing and able to realize that you need to change. Because if you don't change, you're as far as you're ever going to go. And there's where a lot of people kind of, I'm not going to say mess up, but they kind of lose it there because they don't realize that the only way they can move to a higher level is to change. Otherwise, you've gone as far as you can go. And that's fine if that's all you want. And there are people, that's all they want, and that's fine. It's what you think. It's what you think that will determine the speed at which that energy moves. So if you think it's going to be difficult, it's going to be slow. If you think it's going to be easy and effortlessly, then that's what you're programming your mind, and things are going to come at you quicker. So shifting the dominant hand, like let's say you're going to do something, you're maybe right-handed. And so you're going to write with your right hand, or you're going to throw a ball with your right hand. Try shifting it. Try writing with the left hand or throwing a ball with the left hand and seeing how difficult. So I play the piano and I'm right-handed. Much easier, even after years and years of practicing, it's still much easier to do things with my right hand than my left hand, even though I have played the piano for years. I can still feel the difference. It's easier to do with the right hand. It's just that whole idea. So think about if you had to write with the opposite hand of what you normally write with, how difficult it would be. That's the same difficulty that there is when you have to shift your thinking. It's not going to be easy. I wish I could say, you can take a magic feather and boom, it's done. But it's not going to be easy. So you're going to have to realize that it's going to take time and study. Just like it took me a few years to understand, really fully understand the perpetual transmutation. It took study, not just studying that, but studying a range of things on mind, mindset and mind control, and how to shift things. So your intellect, the intellectual part of you, the second level, also impacts the emotional part of you. That intellect sometimes can almost interfere with what you want when you allow the idea of you can't do it, and it'll bring you down. So you have to be really careful of that. The emotion is the feeling, but you got to feel that vibration, and so that the body moves into that vibration. So the vibration dictates the feelings we are in. That vibration dictates it. When we're feeling really lousy, it's because we're functioning at a lower vibration. So we have to learn how to shift our vibrational levels. How do we do it? We change our thoughts. Again, I know it sounds really easy. It sounds so simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. When you're feeling bad, sometimes you just want to wallow in it. And as long as we allow ourselves to wallow in that feeling, we're going to continue to feel bad. Or sometimes you want other people to pity you or to feel sorry for you. And so we'll be in that low vibration. Here's the thing. When you're there, other people pick up on it. They feel your vibration. Now, not everybody is super in tune to that. That's where your intuition comes in. You feel what other people are thinking. Have you ever done that? You know, you've been talking to somebody and you just get this feeling that you know what they're thinking. That's your intuition. You're picking up their vibration. You're picking up the fact that, you know, maybe things aren't going as well as they are putting on that they are. You know, putting on a good show. Have you ever heard somebody, well, they put on a good show? You know, they're trying really hard, but you can tell their vibration was not there. That's your intuition. It's another one of your intellectual faculties that we need to learn to tap into. So we start picking up on people's vibrations. So that's what I want you to think about. You know, if this next week is how you can shift your vibration, because you must learn to change that vibration to shift out of a lower vibration as quickly as possible, especially if you got a really big goal to go after. You can't allow yourself to wallow in that. So I did put, you know, this is one of the things that I love helping people with, is shifting their vibrations. What kind of things can you do? Is it a piece of music? Is it something you read? Is it talking to your coach? Is it talking to your mentor? You know, how can you shift that? And we have to find ways to do that to get ourselves out of that funky feeling. So I want to go back and end today with that quote from Andrew Carnegie. Let's get this in our head. Any idea held in the mind, any idea held in the mind that's either feared or revered will begin to clothe itself in the most convenient form available. So I want you to start thinking, what form do you want, and how you can start to clothe that idea in your mind and hold it and be passionate about it. It's Patricia Stepler with your inside power. And I want you to realize the powers you have inside of you to change your life.